Law, science, economics, history, family, social issues, education, religion, government, or national security. Brannon brings the issues of the day into clear focus through the lens of a Judeo-Christian worldview. And now, here is your host, Brannon Howse.
Good evening. Welcome to the broadcast on this December 17th, 2025. Dr. Naomi Wolf joins me tonight. We're going to talk about many things. Then we're going to get an update from Michael Weiner as silver goes up above $66 an ounce. $66 an ounce, more than that. It's over 66 an ounce for silver, as there is a massive shortage of silver for all the industrial needs, particularly data centers and so much more. We're also going to get a tour, another couple tours by Aaron Lavarco. How many sites are we going to with Aaron tonight, Logan? 2 sites tonight. Aaron Lavarco, our reporter on the ground, taking us on tours of the Holy Land. We'll get 2 new tours by Aaron tonight. Now, the president is supposed to be speaking at 8 o'clock Central, 9 Eastern Standard. We're going to keep going with our broadcast. The guys are going to monitor that for us. If anything of significance is said, then we will cover that. Otherwise, we're just going to keep going because, we just have a lot to cover. And I appreciate the president and a lot of what he does. But I don't know what he's going to talk about tonight. There's been speculation. It's going to be about the economy and things he wants to do to make things affordable. And I say, great. God bless him. I hope he can do it. But that's talk. I want to see action. So we'll see what he proposes. Others are saying he may be announcing a military conflict with Venezuela. Well, if that's the case, again, we'll let you know and we'll monitor that. But I really don't want to interrupt my program for a political speech or even an Oval Office address unless we know it's something of great importance. Telling me about things that you want to accomplish. I've been hearing that now for 11 months. Some of the things he's done, he has accomplished. Other things, not so much. We're still waiting on people to be arrested, grand juries to indict people. There's so many things that haven't been done, but yet we've also heard about how we need 600,000 Chi-Com students to come in here and prop up the woke universities, how we need to have Qatar, I guess, have a base here in Idaho, how we need to have HB1 visas come in here because Americans apparently aren't smart enough to take entry-level jobs and do those jobs. So we got to give them away. I'm tired of talk. I want to see action. So I really don't want to interrupt our program where we can cover a lot of very important things just to hear political talk. I want to see action. But if it's something important, we'll break in, we'll cover it. We want the president to be successful, but it's got to be about more than talk. And when I see Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg and all these guys in the White House, I'm losing hope very, very fast. And I don't think I'm the only one. So normally, when he first started out with his second term, it's like president speaking. Let's hear it. Yay, wonderful. But now I'm hearing a lot of things that are making me where I'm like, I'm not going to give up the valuable program airtime for a political speech. I want to see action, as I said. But if it is important, we'll break in, we'll cover it. Other than that, I'm going to go to talk with Naomi Wolf. And then I'm going to talk with Michael Weiner about our economy and about the Trump accounts. What does he think about the Trump accounts that the Secretary of the Treasury came out talking about today? Oh, it's wonderful. When the government says, we're here to make your kids rich, we're going to start the Trump accounts. Really? You mean the way they were going to make us all rich with Social Security? How much is in that Social Security Trust Fund? How much is in that black box? 0, they took it all and spent it. I don't know. Anytime the government, Ronald Reagan says, is there to help you, what those the dangerous words, I'm from the government and I'm here to help. Well, I'm not buying it. I'm not really buying that one either. So we'll see. I'm sorry to be pessimistic tonight, but I'm tired of all the promises. And it's really just comes down to really basics. Cut the size of government. Get the size of government down. And then cut all the regulation and the red tape. And I appreciate the tax cuts from the president. I really do. But there's so much more that has to be done. And yet we keep being told this is the greatest economy. It's the golden age. Well, a lot of families aren't feeling that. I get it. They aren't. And so there you go. Anyway, you going to go to the theater to see the new the Melania Trump movie, Logan? You're going to rush to the theaters in January to see that? No, I don't either. I saw the trailer today. It looks interesting. But really, again, I think it's bad timing, as I said on radio today. Watching people live the high life when a lot of Americans are struggling. I'm not sure it's good timing in January with midterms coming up. I don't know. It seems a little disconnected. But trust me, there'll be a lot of people that go see it. And of course, there you go. It's a free country. I'm just not interested in going and paying a ticket to watch someone live the high life. And not when the country is in the state that it is, and the Islamists are taking over like crazy, and Jews are being attacked on the street, and now Christians. I just have more important things to concentrate on. But excuse me for being a little pessimistic about that tonight. But what I'm not pessimistic about is the importance of speaking up and speaking out about the persecution and targeting of Christians around the world, but now increasingly here in America. And I want to address that tonight, along with other things, with Naomi Wolf. Now, before we get there, don't forget we're brought to you by you, worldviewtube.com/sponsors. Check out all the great products. You know them. Bella Grace, Numi, Galatana. That's about all I'm going to say, because I want to get to the program. So just go there, will you? worldviewtube.com/sponsors. And then I would say, are you looking for a Christmas gift to give to someone? Here's one you can give to people that's very easy to give, The Vault. Almost 36 years of radio shows, TV shows, ebooks, audiobooks, documentaries, transcripts, and conference DVDs. Be sure to check, is this a gift? Check that box right there. It makes a great gift to give to people here at Christmas time, anytime. It's the gift that keeps on giving, Clark. So check it out, worldviewtube.com/vault, worldviewtube.com/vault. Let's get started. Joining me now is Dr. Naomi Wolf. It's been a while since we've had her on, and it's great to have her back. Dr. Wolf, thank you for making time for us tonight.
So much for having me. It's a pleasure to be with you and your audience again.
Thank you so much. All right, we got so much to cover in a short period of time to do it. I want to start out first with something we talk about here often, and that is dehumanization. And we seem to have a real problem that is now escalating, and I'm afraid it's going to get a lot worse. We saw a woman coming out of a church. I think she'd gone to a Christmas pageant in Savannah, Georgia, has acid thrown on her body. She was known as being someone that was kind to everyone, worked with homeless people. She didn't know this person, right? We now have seen a Jewish man on the street in New York City yesterday, stabbed in the chest with slurs, anti-Semitic slurs at him. Then we saw two Jewish gentlemen attacked on a New York subway simply for being Jewish. We've seen the murder of so many in Australia. The list goes on and on. We saw, and the thing is, you maybe don't remember or don't know, but I sponsored a conference in 2018 for my national conference called Holocaust Horizon, where I was warning then about the rise of anti-Semitism and the trajectory we were seeing. And that was 2018. And in that, I had a picture of the Israeli flag and the known Christian flag that many of us, if we grew up in Protestant churches, would know that the Christian flag would maybe be on one side of the auditorium and the American flag on the other. And so I had a Christian flag and the Israeli flag and the American flag. I'm sorry. It was just the Christian flag and the Israeli flag burning. And the point was that we've got a fire here that's coming against groups. And that's like they say, we'll come for the Saturday people, synagogue people, and then the Sunday people. Well, Now we're seeing, of course, the murder of Charlie Kirk. Then we saw a video that's going viral now of a lady that is accosted wearing a red shirt, the Target color, a nice senior citizen looking lady restocking, it looks like, the shelves and picking up some clothes. And she is accosted because she's wearing a Charlie Kirk shirt that says his name and freedom. And she starts having all these expletives dropped at her. And I guess what I'm asking with this long setup is, I think we've reached that point where they've been coming and are increasingly coming for the Saturday people, now the Sunday people, that if you are trying to stand up for what's right, look out. And I think it's only getting worse with and I don't appreciate, and I'll praise him when he does good, but I'm not going to hold back. I'm not a mouthpiece for this White House. I don't like what he said about, and he doubled down on with Mr. Rob Reiner. A tragic situation with a family trying to rescue their son. And that this is contributing to this dehumanization. Would you agree with any of this?
Gosh, you've said so much. I have to say I agree with all of it. Let me start with the last thing. You're referencing President Trump's comments on Truth Social or on X following the death of Rob Reiner and his wife stabbing victims, apparently murdered by their drug-addicted son. That seems to be the story. And it was a very critical kind of response from the president. I'm with you. I wish his staff would take his phone away at times like that. It doesn't help. The guy's dead. He was a great contributor to American television and movies. And, maybe he had Trump derangement syndrome. The time to say that is not right after he's been found stabbed to death. So it's just not statesmanlike. And I agree with you. And sure, language like that does contribute to general dehumanization. It doesn't help. It just debases the discourse. It's very unfortunate. The other examples that you shared, absolutely, I agree with you. You'd have to be blind not to notice, but it really does depend on your news source. I just talked to my mom, who lets me use her as a kind of touch point for well-informed, well-educated, liberal, West Coast sensibilities. And she was shocked to hear about some of these instances of violence because they're not being covered by PBS, by the New York Times. They're really being covered in the alternative media. So she didn't know, for instance, that a Jewish guy was stabbed. You didn't mention, which I would throw in with this list, that 2 Jewish students, Chabad students, so kind of visibly Jewish, dressed in the Chabad kind of traditional dress, very recognizably Jewish, were choked. One of them was choked on a subway train after a lot of anti-Semitic slurs and hate speech was kind of thrown in their direction. This is on video. I would mention, not throw in, the attacks on Christians in Nigeria. I just did an episode about that. There have been about 52,000 Christians killed in Nigeria in the last decade and a half, usually by Islamist groups. And even moderate Muslims are being killed in Nigeria. So it's all part of a bigger picture. And what I always like to do is kind of step back and look at the kind of the chessboard. It's 1,000% correct that a weird alignment, I call it the red-green revolution, a lot of other people do as well, or alliance, right? Red is Marxism, green is kind of radical Islam. This bizarre alliance, which has nothing to do with each other ideologically, because Marxism, of course, is totally atheistic and radical jihadi Islam is totally theistic, but they've aligned, and the goal is to use radical Islam as a kind of bludgeon to pummel the West. I would note that the rise of these activated terror cells, really, these acts of violence, Islamic-driven violence, kind of erupted after the whole bludgeoning via medical tyranny fell apart. I mean, you've got to notice the timeline. The globalists were doing really well,
mass shooting,
subduing us with the vaccine. And then the whole narrative around the vaccine kind of fell apart all at once, especially with RFK Jr. in the White House and some facts getting out about how dangerous and deadly it was. And so the channel just switched. And it seems like I often write on social media, it's a memo. It's almost like a memo has gone out to all of these groups of Afghanis and Syrians and Iraqis and, like really hardcore Islamist people from Pakistanis from tribal areas, not like highly educated engineers from, Delhi, right? I mean, like really, really medieval versions of Islam are being activated right now to terrorize Jewish groups, to stop Jews from entering synagogues, to disrupt Christmas markets in Europe, in Britain, to stop Israeli sports teams from playing in Birmingham, in Barcelona. And now it's come to our shores. Mamdani's, Oren Mamdani's New York, not coincidentally, I think, is the site of the most recent attacks on Jews in New York, right? There's a changing of the guard, and Mamdani has said he's going to kind of soften police responses, which is terrifying. And you're 1,000% correct to say they start with the Saturday people and then they go on to the Sunday people. We're being thrust back into kind of a medieval, Crusades type reality in which you can be attacked for the way you refer to God, or the kind of church or synagogue I won't yet say mosque because I don't think people are going after Muslims in the same way, but I hope it won't get there. But literally, radical Islam is being directed against Jews and directed against Christians, and it's not going to end. And it's, by the way, I just want to say, it's not just Islamists being directed against Christians. There have been hundreds of churches that have burned to the ground in Canada. So like Antifa and radical Islam are kind of joining forces. Both of them are Soros backed, right? Both of them are getting funding from, the same NGOs, the UN linked NGOs that created instability of various kinds around the world. But it's a very scary time, and it's not over. It's only the fourth night of Hanukkah, and already, there have been so many attacks on Jews and now on Christians. And it's not Christmas yet. God forbid, the kinds of attacks to expect against Christians around Christmas.
Well said. Kash Patel has warned about this new classification that he's calling nihilistic violent extremist. Nihilistic violent extremist. And of course, it seems as though we are now starting to reap the your worldview is the foundation of your values is the foundation of your conduct. And now we're kind of harvesting the conduct of values and worldviews, right? And nihilism, life has no ultimate meaning, and I think it's so interesting that you brought up the COVID situation on your own there and intertwined that into your excellent commentary, because that was my next question was, do you think the COVID response in some ways contributed to the dehumanization? And you brought it up on your own without me having to ask. So you must have already been pondering this. You want to speak to that a little more?
Yeah, I'm more cynical than you are. I don't think that it was like a descent, like, first they dehumanized us with the lockdowns and the masks and the COVID and the forced injections. Certainly that was a massive kind of global exercise, like a ritual humiliation of humanity with a goal of dehumanizing us to ourselves, right? Having us forget our human dignity and rights. But I don't think it was like, that happened, and then we were so dehumanized that the religion started to turn on each other. I don't think it's as organic as that. I think it's like, remember how there was the lockdowns, and then there was BLM everywhere. And then, BLM kind of went away. And then there was I Stand With Ukraine everywhere. And it was all about Ukraine. And then Ukraine kind of went away, right? You're seeing AI change the channel with the global discourse. And so AI now has the capability to change the narrative all around the world in the same way. Early on in 2020, I was looking at the way we were told all at once, social distancing. And then when I was canceled in 2021, before AI was rolled out, it was weird to me that all over the world, I was a conspiracy theorist in every bio all at once. Because how can humans do that? How can they coordinate that much all around the world with a single phrase all at once? Well, now we know about AI, and I personally think AI has been around longer than it's been publicly announced, and that AI was in play in 2020, certainly with that messaging, if not before. Well, where I'm going with that is, I think a small group of globalists has an agenda. It's the same agenda. We've talked about it a lot. All smart people have reached the same conclusion. It's a control grid. It's central bank digital currency. It's medical tyranny to enforce it. It's one kind of government power subjugating everyone else. It's a healthy dollop of Marxism so that everyone is in a state of slavery except for a tiny oligarchy. And it's, a marriage with some tech CEOs at the top. And they've got kind of a policy shop almost, where they issue memos. Really, that's the best way I can say it. And it's with the assistance of AI. I mean, that's obvious to me. And the reason I say that is that now you can see that, I can well imagine a meeting, right, in which the Davos people and the World Health Organization and, the Rockefeller Foundation, like there's a handful of entities, right, are sitting around saying, No one buys the medical tyranny thing anymore. It's falling apart. No one's getting the vaccine. They are becoming aware that we locked them indoors and then forcibly injected them with this dangerous, deadly sterilizing injection for no reason having to do with health. They're suffering medically. Trust in us is at an all-time low. And they're starting, I've left out an important element, they're starting to be nationalist sovereignty movements in European countries, in Poland, in Hungary, in France, in Germany, in Britain. And, there's the Trump administration in the US, which is a complete wrench in the works in terms of sovereignty. People want to harden their borders. They don't want central bank digital currency. They're going to try to drag the EU, out of power and break it up. We're in an emergency. What do? Oh, okay, time for plan B or, stage 2. Let's unleash the cells of radical Islamists who, I will note, because these people are smart, they put into place for the last 4 or 5 years through mass population movements, mass migration. And so that's what I think is happening.
Wow. And then let's go to the right. I have been so discouraged by some people, some of them who have been friends, some who used to be guests on the program, who seem like everything has to come back to pigmentation, skin color, and the Jews. And I try to keep telling them, I said, how many Jews do you know? Do you know any Jewish children? Because I do, okay? And you're telling me you're going to have this hostility toward Jewish adults who you don't know, but can we not just go to the Jewish children? Okay, let's just talk about the Jewish children. You're going to be like that toward these children. You have kids, so why would you treat a group of people that way and target them, which includes targeting children? And I see Nick Fuentes talking about, well, if we could just kick the blacks out of the country and get rid of the Jews, everything would be great. And then I see people on the so-called right, the America First crowd, people that are concerned about the border and different things. And they're talking about people of color, black people, as though this is just where all of our problems are coming from. And I'm like, hello, apparently you haven't watched Cops lately. We all remember the white guy, and his wife beater. I mean, why do we... Sin happens to just permeate all people groups, and I believe that we're of one blood. The Bible speaks to that issue, that there are different people groups, but there's only one race. But they want to go to the whole race thing every time. And I take offense to that for many reasons, and not to mention because of family members of mine as well. But then they want to bring in the Jews. And I'm thinking, well, isn't this interesting? As Islam is rising, which is really a kind of a neo-Nazism in one sense, since you had the Grand Mufti of Palestine helping, according to the Nuremberg trials, create the final solution to off the Jews, and then he was going to run over to Palestine and help, clean that up. That was the goal. That was the promise, I guess. Well, if you're going to now go after people of color and you're going to go after Jews, well, now are there some on the right that are now the new right? It's just very troubling to me. Do you join me in seeing this and being concerned?
Well, again, you've said so much. I mean, first, the first part of what you were saying, which is you're hearing conservative commentators or people in your circle go back to race as the origin of America's problems. I'm really sorry to hear that. I don't see that with my network and my feed, but the algorithm cuts us up into little sub-communities. I know it's latent, in a lot of people, but I had hoped that was in the past, because what President Trump has accomplished and what the conservatives in kind of marriage with Maha have accomplished is a very great potential shift in which a party that could in my lifetime be caricatured as kind of an old boy networks, Southern Baptist kind of innately racist party, right? That's how Democrats are told Republicans think and behave and conservatives think and behave. President Trump managed to move a lot of Black men, especially into voting for MAGA, and a lot of legal Hispanic American voters who really see the Democratic Party becoming more and more estranged from, Hispanic family values of Catholicism, community, family, quite conservative values. So those are two giant demographics that the right was sort of sensibly absorbing and creating a very powerful coalition with centrists like, the Maha moms. That is all being torched by people like Nick Fuentes and the anti-Semites, not to mention the racists against Black and Hispanic people who are raising their voices. And it's sad for me because I now, have thrown in my lot with conservatives because I still think of myself as a liberal, but I have so much more in common with conservatives right now than with the traditional Democratic Party, basic values of decency and sanity. But all of that is going to be destroyed in the midterms, let alone the next presidential election, if these very ugly voices that are both racist and anti-Semitic, become the dominate in the echo chamber. And they're big, loud voices. And so that's really, really unfortunate. When it comes to people hating on the Jews, I wrote this essay, which may be the reason your producer reached out to me recently.
It is.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was in the wake of the first night of Hanukkah and the massacre on Bondi Beach against a group of Chabad is like the most inclusive, respectful of every religion. We love everybody, group of Jews you're going to find on the planet, and so it's so ironic that they were the targets and also the targets of the choking on the subway in New York. God knows what's next, because they couldn't be more inclusive. Like the local Chabad teaches my Catholic husband Torah, every time he walks in and sits down and asks to be taught the Torah. Like they literally welcome everybody with no judgment. And so that's heartbreaking. But I am seeing what you're seeing. I grew up in this country thinking that the anti-Semitism of the 20s, 30s, and 40s in this country was really, of the last century, was really behind us. And when I was growing up, you had to be really ill-educated and kind of a troglodyte, just dumb, to publicly say anti-Semitic things. Mm-hmm. Certainly anti-Semitism existed, but people didn't trot it out at cocktail parties, and only the most boorish, ill-educated people said, yeah, it's all the Jews. Now, I personally think that someone I used to like a lot and, have very cordial chats with, Tucker Carlson, I think his comments, sadly, at Charlie Kirk's memorial service really opened the floodgates. Mm-hmm. Candace Owens has not helped one bit. She happens to be African-American. It is not giving her any wisdom or compassion about hating other groups or not hating other groups. She trots out one hellish, riff after another. I mean, I was reduced to tweeting her pictures of my relatives murdered in Auschwitz, from Ancestry.com. Here's my great aunt. Here's my great uncle. Here's their 12-year-old child who was murdered at Auschwitz. Here are my 4 great aunts and uncles on my grandmother's side. Here are my 4 great aunts and uncles on my grandfather's side. Here's, my great great grandfather who was taken off the mountain by the Nazis. No one ever heard from him again. Like, these are conversations you just think you will never have to have in America with people with more than a high school education. But she has done a lot of damage and she continues to. And then, of course, Nick Fuentes, Team Hitler, hey, mom and dad, Hitler was effing cool. This is unfortunately, the social media really reinforces this kind of thing, because every one of these posts is like, ooh, clicks. Ooh, that's all over the independent media. That's more clicks, more subscribers. More people will tune in if just to watch the car wreck of, a brain consuming itself with stupidity and ignorance of history. But that's happening. And then there's this unfortunate merger of legitimate, I guess, if you're MAGA, criticism of money that we send to Israel. And there is certainly an argument. I'm America first. I, too, think we don't need to send billions to Egypt or billions to Saudi Arabia. We don't need to send billions probably to Israel,
I
right?
agree. I agree. And yet I'm a very strong Christian Zionist, but I agree with that. I say that to my audience all the time. I can be a strong Christian Zionist without believing I need to send billions to Israel or have my sons die in a war in the Middle East.
Totally. However, that fact that we do have, Israel does have a lobby, just like Qatar has an even bigger lobby, right? Or Turkey has a giant lobby. That's being used as they're mushing hatred of Jews, or the Jews are behind everything. The Jews killed Charlie Kirk. Israel killed Charlie Kirk. The Jews are behind the pandemic. It's all the protocols of the elders of Zion, right? They mush that into what initially sounds reasonable. Let's have a conversation about the power of the Jewish lobby. However, I am going to say one more thing, if I may. I beg your pardon. I didn't turn off notifications. Let me do that. I'm so sorry.
It's all right.
People are also really dumb about geopolitics. And yes, there's a limit to how much money we should send overseas. However, it's totally legal to lobby.
Yes,
and
100%.
Qatar lobbies, Turkey lobbies, they all lobby. So if you don't want money going to Israel, tell your representative, tell him not to send money to Israel. And the last thing I will say, because I've kind of been pushed past my limit of, until very recently, I used to be very like, it's, Palestine, Israel, peace. Let's join hands, kumbaya. Maybe we shouldn't, have a theocratic country. I am such a Zionist now. I'm just going to say it. I am such a Zionist now, 100%. And no one gives me checks. I am an independent person. I am a Zionist because if it weren't for Israel being our ally in the Middle East, we would be facing the biggest block of Islamic jihadist terror with nothing holding it back, and we'd be facing it over here. So Israel is our proxy war, to hold back or hold at bay a massive block of the Islamic world, which sees the U.S. as the great Satan. And it's a good ally to have,
I agree.
And if you want to deal with Syria and Iraq and Iran and Saudi Arabia and and Afghanistan and their treatment of women and homosexuals, and you want to deal with their terror cells over here with no Israel, trying to hold things down off in the Middle East, God bless you. Good luck with that. I think we get good value for our money with Israel as our ally.
100%. And I know you got a heart out. We have a reporter on the ground in Israel. We've had now for a few years. We pay him. I, like you, take no money from any Israeli group or government. I mean, they're happy. I'd love to have some support to write off my thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of dollars in bandwidth bill every month to give away free programming. But I receive no money. We pay our own reporter on the ground. We are independent because, like you, I have convictions and I understand the historical basis for the Jewish people, what they've been through, their right to the land historically. And we can go all the way back to the Balfour Declaration and all of those great things, which so few people talk about anymore. But I also understand it as a Christian, and I understand Genesis 12 and Genesis 15 and the Abrahamic Accord. And so I have a new book. I just finished 4 one-hour programs on why I'm a Christian Zionist. I'll be turning it into a book. I defend it from the Old Testament. And I'll just say in closing, Naomi, I'm fighting the evangelicals that are teaching replacement theology in our churches, which has taken over like a cancer, that somehow that God has broken his place with Israel. They passed over him as Messiah, so he went to the Gentile, and now Israel has been replaced by the modern church. That's called replacement theology, and it is a cancer on modern day evangelicalism. That was not the case when I was growing up in the 70s and 80s. To the contrary, now that permeates that John Calvin, Martin Luther teaching has permeated many what were traditionally strong Christian Zionist church denominations through what is called Calvinism. And so you go read Luther, you go read Calvin, and you start listening. And of course, we have to remember Martin Luther was quoted 3 times by Hitler in Mein Kampf. But this is my calling in life has been largely, in one sense, with my many, many books, is calling out the evangelicals because of where they've been going. And one of them is the replacement theology. And so I'm fighting the anti-Semitism through the theological and eschatological beliefs of the modern church to say, no, God's done with Israel. He's done with the Jews. We don't care about that. We're now the new Israel, the church. I'm like, really? It's funny. You guys want to take all the blessings described in the Old Testament, but you don't want to take any of the curses in the Mosaic covenant. So this is a fight, sadly, that is repeating itself from the 1930s when the German Christians dissolved their denominations and united under the Reich bishop handpicked by Adolf Hitler for the same reason. They had all bought into the replacement theology. So you and I are, I think, fighting this in different areas, but it's the same fight. Closing comment?
Well, I'm just so grateful to you because you've solved a mystery that was really haunting me. I keep seeing people online saying these crazy things like, Jews are no longer God's chosen people. You guys blew it, and so now we've replaced you. The church has replaced you. I'm like, that's not theologically accurate in Christianity.
It's not.
And I was wondering where it came from. And so now you're telling me that there's a very dangerous, untrue, inaccurate wave of misinformation, basically, going into American churches. And I'd love to know more. So
I'm going to send you my book. I can have Logan send you the 4 TV shows, but we can also send you the book, whichever you prefer. And we have major Christian writers out there for years that we've been battling, saying things like, there's no super sign in the New Testament, no super sign in the New Testament that Israel is important to God. And I'm like,
what?
Have you not read Romans chapter 11? This is Saul, who became Paul, who was of the tribe of Benjamin, who was a Pharisee, who says right there in Romans chapter 11, as a member of the tribe of Benjamin, as a Jew, is God done with the Jewish people? He says, no. And then he goes on around verse 28, 29, 30 of Romans 11 to say, the promises that God has for the Jewish people are, quote, irrevocable, end quote. And yet we have this ignorance. And the only way you can get there, Naomi, is through editing the Bible, which I can show you pastors that will take verses, cut them in half. So it sounds like God, the Jews, they are enemies of God, period. No. The verse doesn't have a period there. It keeps going. But God will show them mercy and will keep his promises to their fathers, which would be Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. But they cut the verse off so it's out of context. Or they spiritually allegorize it away. And what we do is come back with clean hermeneutics, biblical tools for the study of Scripture, Scripture to confirm Scripture, Scripture to interpret Scripture, both old and new. And you can't come around. And yet that form that I'm called is called dispensationalism. That is under attack today. We are called and Tucker Carlson has done a fair amount of interviews with people attacking those of us who are dispensationalists that stand where we do. But this is classic Christianity. Billy Graham, D.L. Moody. I can take you down through history of classic people. And this is what Christian has been.
Wow, I'm shocked. I must add there, Jesus Christ, the Jew who taught in the temple and celebrated Passover and said in Matthew, not a jot or tittle of the law will pass away till heaven and earth passes away. He ministered to Jews. He was distilling, Jewish belief for Jews and non-Jews is my interpretation.
And Matthew is the Gospel of Matthew is a distinctively Jewish book. And all of the authors of the Bible, other than Luke, were all Jewish. So we have a Jewish Messiah and a Jewish Bible, really. But yeah, I know you got to go. It's a hard break, but I'll send you some stuff. I had no idea we were going to go there, but I find it interesting that you find it interesting because I respect your political and geopolitical background and where the work you've accomplished. And I really enjoy talking to people like you and explaining to some of the folks that I know out of Washington and whatnot, because they will say to me, what is it with the evangelicals? I watch them online. They're all turning. And then when I tell them, like I did you, I get the same response from them, which I love that because it allows me to take what's kind of my wheelhouse and help people who I think are very influential. And I want them to get it. Because when people like you get it, you can reach people that I could never reach.
Well, it's huge. We clearly have to all work together on this. But what I'm interested in before I go, I promise, is I want to know the funding of that complete inversion of what was understood in classical Christianity and classical Judaism. We were, the tree and the branch, right? I mean, there's no question. And what I keep thinking about is this Qatari money, which I haven't mentioned yet, millions and millions of Qatari money, because what we're seeing is, the alliance between Christians and Jews, especially religious Christians, fundamentalist or evangelical Christians in the past, and Jews, has been so strong because of the understanding that Scripture says we're really, flowing from one people and one root. And politically, it's such a clever idea if you want to destroy America to break that up, or if you want to, wipe Israel off the map, break it up. So I definitely need to know more about that.
Well, there's some money involved, I know, but I'll tell you, one of the main things is our seminaries became very weak on the teaching of Bible prophecy. And yet about a third of the Bible is Bible prophecy. But they became very weak on the teaching of theology and doctrine. They began to teach more about fundraising, administration, how you grow a church, instead of teaching the Bible hermeneutically in context. And once you do, when your churches abandon theology, then you're done. You're toast, because your theology ends up impacting your eschatology, your end time belief, and what is the function and purpose of the church. And the social justice people love this, because once the church is now bought into social justice, materialism over spiritualism, then you've completely neutered the church, which is, of course, the church can go and do great things in a material world, but ultimately the Great Commission, right? And so I think we can take it all the way back to groups of people that said, we've got to grab the church. We've got to transform the church, that last line of defense. I even had CIA people who were, one's an atheist and one was a kind of an agnostic, sat at my table as retired CIA and said, Brandon, what you're trying to do with the evangelical church is so important. And I said, why? And they said, because that is the last line of defense for the Islamist. If they can take out the evangelical church to buy into replacement theology, that they will turn on the Jews. They will see no special reason to defend the Jews. If they can become people that no longer stand for the Bible, they can be taken down and taken over with interfaith dialogue, that we all worship the same God. And so even from a national security standpoint, they said, look, we're not like Bible people, but we understand if the evangelicals go down, the country's over, because that's the last line that they have to penetrate.
Wow. Which brings us back to the Red-Green Alliance, right?
Yes.
Both the Marxists and the Islamists would like to get rid of that bond between Christians and Jews. And I guess the last thing I want to say, and then I promise I'll leave, is, I'm reading the Geneva Bible, and comparing to the Hebrew Bible, 1560 Geneva Bible, the great Reformation Bible before the King James Version. And it's a very accurate translation into English from the Hebrew, and I read Hebrew. And I mention this because they were motivated by bringing the literal word of God to, as they put it, every plowboy, right? Without the intermediary of the church and the Pope and so on.
But my only caution about the Geneva Bible, although it's a great Bible, is John Calvin at Geneva and what he said about the Jews. And if you go and look up, and I can send it to you, what he said about the Jews, and you didn't know it was John Calvin, you'd be going, who is that? And you're going, what?
I'm sure, I'm sure there's people have the prejudices of their time and, deep prejudices that just persist century after century. But all I was going to say is another reason to, and I'm seeing this in Reform Judaism as well. And when I go to church, I kind of am struck at how little scripture is read, and when I go to synagogue, except the Chabad and the Orthodox, they don't really read scripture. And now that I'm reading the Hebrew Bible, verse by verse by verse, I'm like, wow, with this, no one can shake you. No one can, terrify you. No one can lie to you. No one can, deceive you. In addition to everything else that is the agenda of making sure that scripture isn't taught in seminary, I imagine that just making sure people don't have access to the real word of God is a motivation in itself.
Absolutely.
That's all.
Yeah, you're 100% right, because once you take away people's ability to train them to know the Bible, they're open to anything. I think it says in the scriptures that people will be tossed about to and fro by every wind of doctrine that deceives people. But once you know the Bible, and we don't have to have someone that knows it. We have to run to them. No, we need Bible teachers and people that know it, that can mentor us and disciple us and teach us, and pastors, and those things are great. But at the end of the day, if Christians knew their Bible, the church in America would be able to speak up and say, I'm sorry, that is not in the Bible. That's not acceptable. We will not accept that in our churches. We will not accept that on Christian radio. We will not accept that in our Christian colleges and universities and church denominations. But sadly, the average Christian, and the polls show it, the average Christian doesn't know their Bible. But see, that's the goal when you penetrate with the progressive Marxist ideology, the cultural Marxism, that they penetrated these seminaries years ago. And I have the quotes, the historical quotes by them saying, if we can get into these seminaries and we can change them within, then those guys go on, which is why you had the National Council of Churches, the Federal Council of Churches by those guys that started that. Walter Rauschenbusch and his buddy that was known as the Red Dean. They knew if they could penetrate those churches, boy, they could destroy that foundation. And then 40, 50 years down the road, here you have a church today that is not opposing Islam, not opposing what's happening to the Jews. And those guys, if they were around today, would be saying, in many regards, this is exactly what we were trying to do. Turn the church into a social program, not a spiritual force to stop evil. Wow. You and I could go for hours. I like talking to you because you're well-read and we go back and forth and it's always fun. And I want to show your website. Here it is, dailyclout.io, dailyclout.io. And of course, you can follow her on X. There is her X handle right there at Dr. Naomi I.R. Wolf. No, Naomi R. Wolf. At Naomi R. Wolf. At Naomi R. Wolf. Follow her on X and all of her great work. Naomi, thank you so much. Happy Hanukkah.
Happy Merry Christmas almost. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Guys, we'll be right back after this short break. Do you appreciate all the free programming we produce here at Worldview Tube? Well, if you do, we need your partnership now. If you're already supporting us, thank you. If you're not, would you please consider doing so? We have to have a big November and December end of the year giving. Please go here right now to this website, worldviewfoundation.com, worldviewfoundation.com. You can give through credit card. You can give through PayPal. You'll find our mailing address there if you prefer to support us through the mail. You'll also find our phone number. Simply use that phone number by leaving a voicemail for Melissa or texting her, and my wife will get back with you and help you make your contribution over the phone. We send out tax receipts with our EIN number, well, the first week of February of each year. We, again, have to have a very big November and December as we get ready for pushing out more Christian worldview programming for 2026. So thank you for going now to worldviewfoundation.com. That's worldviewfoundation.com. Joining me now is Michael Weiner, as gold is at $4,340 an ounce. Silver is at almost it's at $66.28, over $66 an ounce. Michael Weiner, welcome back to the broadcast. Thanks for being with us.
Good evening, Brandon. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much. All right, tell me, Michael, what does this mean? Silver at $66.22. What do you make of this?
Well, with silver right now, what's really going on is the fact that it's been oversold for a long time. We've been lied to by our own government. We've been lied to by the banks. We've been lied to by the mines. And what they're finding out right now is there isn't any. We're finding out that the United States government's declared silver to be a critical metal.
So you're telling me there's a shortage of silver?
Absolutely. The United States government 2.5 months ago declared silver to be a critical metal, which means there isn't enough. And the problem is that silver usage as part of industrially is huge, especially all these data centers putting in. What do you think they're going to use in all these data centers? Just like they use in the solar energy, they're going to be using a lot of silver. And the bottom line is they don't have enough. And they're literally two factions. There's one faction that was looking at it financially. There's another faction that's looking at it physically. And that conundrum is creating a huge problem within the marketplace. That's why I predicted, it's going to hit over 60 before the end of the year, and here we are. I'm predicting literally by the first quarter of next year, we're going to be close to $75. And by the end of the year, silver could become the new copper. literally. And for the people to understand copper, back in the Stone Age, as Brandon said, when I was around, copper was I could sell a copper contract, 10,000 pound copper contract in 1979 for $700, 10,000 pounds, 7 cents a pound. Now, where's copper? $4.50, 60 cents, whatever. Silver is going to become that way because of the fact that it's been critical and we have been lied to. Just like so many things going on right now, it's misinformation. I couldn't be more upset than I am about the misinformation that's coming up about this year by the industry and by the government and by, the suppliers. And that's not just on silver. I'm talking in the stocks, mutual funds, bonds, money, everything. It's the year-end lies. That's what I call it.
Okay, so what do you say to those who are saying that silver has decoupled from gold? Would you agree, and what does that mean?
I think silver has never been really coupled to gold. I think there's a lot of misstatements. Understand the fact the last big drop in silver was in 2011, November, right after Thanksgiving. Now, the gold market went down 25%. Silver went down almost 80%. They've always been on their own. But you had silver dragging gold for a while because of the fact that the people manipulating it, it's not just the miners, it's not just the banks, it's not just the technology firms. Guess who else it is? The people that salvage silver. They don't throw things away that have silver in it. They salvage it. And the salvage industry is huge in silver. So there's so many fingers in the pot. And on top of that, that keeps it private, but has been suppressed by banks, by governments, and now that's coming on its own. I'm not saying silver is the next gold. I will never believe that because silver is an industrial metal, 50-50 industrial, 50% monetary. Gold is all monetary right now. Gold is money. But the big issue that we see next year going on with silver is all these data centers they're going to be building. They're in the United States. They've got all this money, let alone outside the United States. Where are they going to get this silver? And you got China jumping on trying to buy some of it. And then we go into the technology militarily and all the AI changes, all involving new equipment, all involving silver. So silver is going to be very, very highly used. Like I said, $90 to $100. Okay.
$90 to $100 by when?
End of next year.
End of next year. Okay. So the $50 was the high we had to get back to, right?
We're beyond that. Right?
So now we're at 67. So anything beyond 50 broke the record. We had to hit back to 50. Now we're going into territory we've never been before.
Absolutely.
Same with gold too, right?
Same with gold. I mean, when we sat there, we sat here last January, and you and I were on at the beginning of the year, and gold was $2,400, $2,500, and I said, Brandon, gold's going to be $3,000 by March, and you go, you can replay the show. You're going, Are you kidding? And I said, no, I'm not. And it hit 3,000 by the middle of March. It's going to be the same thing this year. By the middle of March, you're going to see gold somewhere around 4,800, heading close to 5,000. I think that there's a lot of factors monetarily that are going to go into effect with the Genius Act. That will have a positive effect on silver, too. So they're going to play off each other somewhat. I guess it's going to really, really play on each other. And I think that silver will be actually supported at times that the manipulators try to go in by the strength of the gold market because they can't manipulate gold anymore. Gold is on its own. Gold is a monetary instrument. That's why Jamie Dimon and that's why our dear friend Moynihan from B of A predicts $6,000 gold next year. But these comments that are being made that everything's great in the country and we've got the greatest of this and we're the hottest country in the world. The problem is that the people in the middle don't feel it. You're not speaking to us. You might be speaking to some guy in Qatar, but it's not working with me. Okay, I need to see some real relief. When I see the unemployment rate go up as it did yesterday, when I see the tariffs still not decided and creating prices that still have a problem, when I see Basant going on TV telling us that everything's going to be great, it's going to be a spectacular year, that's not putting money in my pocket right now. And that's what's bothering the Americans, and that's why Trump's favorability rating is below 40 right now, because of the fact that people aren't buying it. And that's why gold is going to be so strong, because the Democrats are also going to attack on that. We've got another factor next year, and that is the socialist communists attacking. And who cares if it's one party, but this other party doesn't want to even have America. They want to have a one party, one monetary global system. That's all going to feed into this. And that's why it's so important for people who are benign, paying attention, to turn on the TV and turn on the lights upstairs in their heads and say, you know what? I've got to be one-dimensional. I've got to put things in my pocket. I've got to put things in my control that I control, because you've got to understand these people in Washington are the ones controlling your money. They're the ones really can sit back and lock you out of your dollars with a snap of your fingers. But if you own gold and you control it physically, or even in your IRA, the government doesn't. You do. What sounds better? You tell me. I'm done.
Yeah, you tell me. All right, so the data centers all need silver. There's not enough silver above the ground. And how long will it take these miners to dig it out of the ground, mint it, and get it to the production going for the AI data centers? And then the other, I mean, isn't silver used in like 1,200 plus applications, industrial? I mean, there's silver in your computers, your cell phone, I think even in your windshield, isn't there?
Catalytic converters.
Mm-hmm.
Catalytic converters. Understand the fact that it's not going to be fast enough. They'll get more silver out of the salvage market than they'll get it out of here. There's a company called Unicor in the federal prison system, and there's some of the facilities there. My son, who worked for the government, told me these guys, all they do is break down old computers and pull whatever silver is out of it. Literally, right now. Silver is a critical metal, and I'll make this prediction. By the middle of next year, gold will be declared a critical metal.
Mm.
It's just that, where are they going to get it from? It's not something that's in abundance right now.
Are you ever worried about confiscation if it's such a critical metal for the government?
Absolutely.
Really?
That's why you and I talk about absolutely. Because if the Democrats get involved with this country, they're the ones that made it illegal for 40 years to own gold.
Wouldn't that create, I mean, do you think the American people are going to agree to give it back?
They didn't agree before. I mean, look at when somebody says something's not possible in this country, think about it. We had this country in 1933. They casually shut down the banks. They locked the doors and put a sign on the window that said bank holiday. And what did you do? Bang on the door? They still didn't let you in. And then in 1971, Nixon illegally took us off the gold standard, and our money went from, we talked about it last week, went from being worth something to being worth nothing. Yeah. If you went the day before that happened, they had to pay you in silver or gold. The next day they gave you a ticket to the men's room. You had nothing. You had paper. So when people talk about digital currency, theoretically you're dealing with monopoly money right now. It doesn't matter. But the gold is something you physically could control and manage on your own. But, understand the fact that the Democrats, if they turn around and do this, that's why a good percentage of the gold that you control is numismatic, because that same law allows people to own collectible metal. And that goes back to the 1930s. There was a guy named Harry Helmsley, and before your time, Brandon, I know you know, Leonora Helmsley was his famous wife who went to prison for tax evasion. There was a billionaire who went to prison for tax evasion, and her husband died. Harry was partners with a guy named Eliason, who in the 30s, the two of them bought the Chrysler building. And some of the money they used to pay for it was collectible coins. And they tried to dispute it, still worked. So this is tried and true. That's why we tell people to try to keep some of the collectible coins in their possession, make some of the collectible coins something that they hold, because it's the one thing that is totally vanilla. It's just like I told you the story about the gentleman who came here from California, and he lives here now. We talk. I see him usually once a month because he buys every month right now. It's just like a savings plan to him. And at the end of the day, he just loves the story about how he got a check for 500 and some thousand. He didn't have to turn off a blood type to make it happen. It's amazing if you go into a hospital and check in. I had a client of mine, he's a worldview client, and I'll share this with the people out there who wonder about California right now. This was today. Today I talked to him. He called me because he wanted to take advantage of the year-end specials on gold that we have with the state liquidations. And he says to me, Michael, I was robbed outside the bank, right on the curb. I was parked my car. They watched me when they came out. They hit me on the head, grabbed my envelope with my money in it, and ran away. I called 911 in Los Angeles, sat there for 34 minutes waiting for a call back from 911. He called him 4 times. Finally, he got in the car and drove to the police station. And the policeman told him, "You're probably better going to get an EMT person just go to the hospital. We can't get him here that fast." And he said, "What about my money? What about there's cameras out there?" He said, "We were not going to have time for that. That's life and He turned around and said, "I'm moving out of here. I don't feel safe. How can I feel safe when I can't even be protected literally and get a police officer to come help me when I'm robbed?"
Nope, you can't.
Think about it.
Yep. Hey, let's go to Basent, the Treasury Secretary, on the Trump accounts. I want to know what you think about these Trump accounts. Here we go. Listen. Oh, I need to plug it in. I guess the cord for this is on the ground, guys. So if someone wants to come grab the cord, I'll plug it in. In the meantime, if you want the free packet of information from Michael Weiner, there you go. 1-877, I don't even know what it is. 1-866-738-3222. No, it's 1-877. I don't know. You'll have to put it up there. I have too many numbers. 1-877-864-1072. I just need you to get me started. 1-877-864-1072 or worldviewgold.com. All right. Thank you, Logan. Here is the Secretary of the Treasurer.
Make young Americans wealthy.
All right. Let's get it. Let's get it again. Make young Americans wealthy again, huh?
Make young Americans wealthy. The S&P has grown at a rate of 10.5% each year on average since the 1950s. Assuming that growth rate continues, a single $1,000 deposit into a Trump account at birth will grow to over $600,000 by the age of retirement. Our president is putting the American dream within reach of every citizen, no matter the circumstances of birth. When young Americans turn 28, they can use their Trump accounts to keep saving for their retirement, or they can use them to purchase a home or further their education, 2 hallmarks of the American dream. Trump accounts will benefit from the compound growth of Treasury's initial seed funding, but they can also benefit from outside donations. Starting on July 4th, our nation's 250th anniversary, parents, family members, employers, and friends will be able to contribute up to $5,000 to each Trump account each year. By contributing the maximum amount each year, the Council of Economic Advisors estimates that a child's Trump account would be worth more than $1 million by the time they turn 28.
Great, and you can buy a car, because that's about what a car will cost you, $1 million. I'm not buying this. Treasury Secretary Percent just revealed that Trump accounts can grow to over $600,000 by retirement. This is genius, okay? But since says he believes employers will offer matching contributions to Trump accounts as well. The long game. This is really how it's done. The president's putting American dream within reach of every American. If the inflation rate continues for the next 30 years, what it has been the last 30 years, I think I read not too long ago that the average house would be like $1.6 million. A car is going to cost you $200,000. So I know this sounds great, but I'm really not for the government coming up with all these ideas to try to supposedly create wealth for the. What I am for is for cutting the tax rate, cutting regulation, getting rid of the scam of the Social Security tax we have to pay, and let us invest and let them invest their own money in their own business, whatever. I'm not buying this. I'm really not. I mean, when the government shows up and says, "I'm here to help you," what did Ronald Reagan say? That's scary, right? And so they're going to try to make you rich. Well, good luck. You got $600,000 under inflation. You'll be lucky to buy a hamburger.
Well, the big problem with the whole thing is they don't talk about the exit strategy. It's just like the same sales pitch they did in the 30s when they created Social Security. The problem is, what did the government do to Social Security? They borrow all the money every week. So do you honestly believe that if they start putting away this money and those guys in Congress, there's about $20 billion sitting there in those accounts for those kids, we'll just give it to them in their Social Security account. They will find a way to get their hands on it just the way they got it to Social Security. You think I trust them? I don't. If my comment would be, you want to give it to the American people, let the parents run that account.
That's right.
Not the government. Why does the government have to run it? You don't trust us. That's what they're saying. They're saying the parents will spend it. You want to know what? My answer to that is let them spend it. If you're going to give it to the children, let the parents manage the account. But as long as the government's managing it, and all due respect, the founders were right. They put us under the gold standard so these idiots couldn't spend more money than they had gold in Fort Knox. We went off of that in 71, and from 1971 to now, 38 trillion with a T in debt. And guess what? Do you honestly think they're going to be able to pay it back? The only way they can do that is by devaluing. Do you think when they start building up a big block of cash that they're going to sit back and not dip their little fingers in it? Every single time it's there, they dip their fingers in it. They borrow against it. They spend it. So to me, the only solution for something like this, and I liked the idea at first, was I thought they were giving it to us. I didn't think they were going to have something else they controlled. How many people know what's in their Social Security account? And how many people really understand that you don't control it? They do. You don't have access to it? They do. You don't even sit back and have the ability to leave it to your family. They do. And like myself, if your better half passes away too early, you don't get anything. So, that's a big reason why they did Obamacare. They wanted us to die, the older people to die, so that way they can get our Social Security money. Understand really what's going on here is when we look at Social Security, they're trying to nationalize retirement plans. Obama tried it in 2012. Biden's tried it. They call it GRP, Government Retirement Program. And what they want to do is take up all of these $60 to $80 trillion in retirement dollars and then issue you Treasury credit into your Social Security account. And guess what, Mr. Smith? You're going to get a bigger check. But you have no access to the money. You have no beneficiaries. You have nothing. It's just government. Big brother. And that's why Reagan created gold IRAs, because he wanted people to own something in their retirement plan that the government did not have access to. Gold IRAs, different than paper IRAs, they can't get it. They got to take you to court. They got to emancipate it. Gives you freedom to do things while they try to take it, right? If they want to grab up paper assets, like I told you, in 33, they locked the bank. In 71, they shut down they didn't shut down the country at all. They just made your money worthless. And in March 2020, when Trump shut the country down, what happened? You couldn't get to your bank or your ATM machine. Did you have a vote? Did you have a choice? No. That's why you control your assets and physical ideals like gold IRAs, gold physical, and you keep drinking the Kool-Aid like they're selling right now. For the year end, all these geniuses, it's going to be a spectacular 2026. We're all going to make money. Yeah, they're going to make money. You're darn right. Win or lose, they will make money. You won't.
Yeah, look at this headline, Mike. Federal Reserve withdraws 2023 guidance blocking uninsured banks from crypto. That sounds dangerous.
Yep.
That sounds like a great way for banks to go gambling on crypto, and then, oops, where'd the money go?
It's giving them a gateway to just play with your money, and at the end of the day, that's why they have bail-in. which is another. We could go on and with these situations. What worldview? I'm not selling worldview right now. It's one of the world's only, this country's only venue where you're getting the truth. And what they preach to you at Worldview, besides what we're talking about with gold, what they try to tell you to do is be self-reliant.
That's right.
With food,
That's right.
Frozen food, be it with your phones, be it with all the products and things that they put together for you, are all about independence. It's all about self-reliance, and that's what we have to get behind and support for Worldview at all times, because it's one of the last places that you get this type of support. We at Swiss America, it's like I'm talking to somebody right now, as one of the people that work through Swiss, we don't charge you for ongoing information. We don't charge you for guidance on what you should do. But I've got a client, Worldview client right now, that's been dealing with me, God, since Brandon and I have been together. And we've literally sat back and built up for his retirement, literally a $2.5 million profit in 18 years.
Wow.
2.5, doubled the money. Okay. And it wasn't, and we both say it was never about making money. It was always about security. He's secure, he's financially set, and he controls his retirement, not Charles Schwab.
And not a bank, who decided to go play the crypto. The Federal Reserve has announced a withdrawal of its 2023 guidance that effectively prevented uninsured banks from becoming members of the Federal Reserve System and engaging in cryptocurrency activities. This guidance was a key factor in the Fed's previous denial of a master account to a Custodia bank, a financial institution seeking to integrate crypto services. The move marks a significant shift in the Fed's stance on the involvement of uninsured banks in the crypto sector, potentially opening new opportunities for these institutions. But yeah, can we talk about the risk, right? The risk, right, Michael?
Yeah, it's extremely risky, but they don't care. It's just like, when they're talking about the situation with the various different types of things that they offer at the banks that they have right now that legitimately are way oversold and not covered. And nobody cares.
Yeah.
Nobody bothers with it. They let them get away with it.
Worldviewgold.com, worldviewgold.com, or 1-877-864-1072. I knew it then. I just had to have my memory refreshed. 1-877-864-1072, or worldviewgold.com. Silver over $66 tonight. Gold at $4,338, over $66. You see a correction coming in or not between now and the end of the year?
I think there might be some mini bumps, but right now these idiots in Washington are screwing things up so bad, it's making it very difficult to have it. And I have clients asking me, well, we're going to get a correction. So I said, okay, let's say it drops $100. Is that going to make your day? I mean, we're not in this for day trading. If you're going to do that, go buy an option. I'm not that guy. Mm-hmm. We're long term. I mean, when we we talked in January, I think it was 2480 or something. It went down to 2200 and then went straight up. You can't, we're not these wheelers and dealers. We're stability people.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Worldviewgold.com, worldviewgold.com.
I want to mention that my Christmas present for the family, the House family, is there, and that includes Dolly.
It arrived today. And it had some beautiful apples and oranges. And
crackers for Dolly.
And some other stuff I saw in there. I can't remember now, but pears. I love pears. I said, it was a well-known company. I said, so who is this from? Is it safe to eat this? And and my wife said, first of all, it's from this company. They packed it up. This is a reputable company. And then I said, well, who is it from? And so she dug through there and finally said, it's from Michael Weiner. I said, oh, it's definitely not safe to eat. No, I said it's very safe to eat. Now we know it's definitely safe to eat. No, he didn't send us any. He didn't send us any psychedelic mushrooms or anything. It was all very, very stable fruit.
We gave that to the former Secretary of the Treasury. She got them all.
The mushroom. That's right, the mushrooms. Oh my word.
Yeah, she's real busy. She was real busy being in the Wizard of Oz, Wicked, and all that. She was one of the little.
Oh my word. 1-877-864-1072 or worldviewgold.com. But thank you for the apples, the oranges, the pears, crackers. There was other stuff in there. I can't remember what else was in there, Logan.
Meat.
Oh, some
Candy.
meat, some salami.
Meat.
I love salami.
Yeah, there's lots of stuff.
Yeah, I love salami.
Logan's
Yeah.
going to eat it all first.
This is true. It's a beautiful package, by the way. Beautifully packaged, 2 boxes, beautifully packaged. So thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Take
All
care.
right,
Have a good
that's
evening.
Michael Weiner, worldviewgold.com. And by the way, I do not give financial advice. I give financial opinion. Do your own due diligence. And I think it begins with getting that free, no obligation packet of information from Mr. Weiner at worldviewgold.com. Just fill out the little form online, worldviewgold.com, or call 1-877-864-1072. All right. We asked our reporter on the ground in Israel to go and give us a couple more tours of the Holy Land. And he did. And of course, he's brought to you in part by our foundation, worldviewfoundation.com. We give him love offerings for not only reporting for us, but going out and doing tours. He's a licensed tour guide in Israel. And we asked him to do a few more, and we're going to keep doing them. Pretty soon, Logan, I think we'll have enough tours by our buddy Aaron Lavarco to actually put together an Israel channel, don't you? I think so too. So he's going to keep cranking them out. And as long as you keep supporting us at worldviewfoundation.com, we'll keep giving him love offerings to report for us and do these special tours of the Holy Land of Israel. So here is the latest report filed by our reporter on the ground, Aaron Lavarco.
Shalom, everyone. This is Aaron Lavarco talking to you from the land of Israel on behalf of Worldview Television and Radio. I'm speaking from a place called Modi'in. Modi'in is between Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. Modi'in is a very interesting place because it speaks of a story that happened not in the Bible, but in the intertestamental period in the books called the Apocrypha. 2 of those books are called Maccabees 1 and Maccabees 2. If you're a Catholic or an ex-Catholic, those books are in your Bible. In the New Testament, it's actually mentioned in the Gospel of John chapter 10. And it's a story that happened in this very area. Now, I'm here at night because I want to give you the kind of ambience and feel of that family called the Maccabees. They were actually more, their real name were called the Hasmoneans, but they're more famously called the Maccabees. The father was a man called Judah Maccabee. This happened at about 135 BC. And the story goes that the Greek leader Antiochus Epiphanes the fourth, he went up into Jerusalem. He started to persecute the Jewish people. He threw women off the tops of roofs with their dead babies around their neck, murdered babies. If any child was caught being circumcised, they were slain. Antiochus Epiphanes was a tyrant of a leader. His predecessors, other Greek leaders, even going back to Alexander the Great in 332 BC, they were very lenient and liberal and allowed freedom of religion. But Antiochus Epiphanes IV, he changed his policy. And so persecution of the Jewish people began. When that began, the Maccabees led a revolt. And it was in this area, right behind me, in this forest called the Ben Shemen or the Modi'in forest. They hung out under the ground in caves. Yes, dozens and dozens and dozens of caves we've found in this very area. And over a 7-year guerrilla warfare battle, Judah Maccabee and his sons defeated the Greeks. When they defeated the Greeks, they declared independence. This became an independent land of Judea. This was only the second time the Jewish people had independence. The first time was 1000 BC, King David. This was only the second time. And the first thing they did, they went up to Jerusalem, which is about a 45-minute drive from here. Let's say about 35 miles. They went up to the temple, the holy temple, which had been defiled by Antiochus Epiphanes IV because he sacrificed a pig on the altar. Can you imagine that? In the Holy of Holies, a pig desecrating the temple. So Judah Maccabee went up and they tried to re-clean it, rededicate it. This is where we get the word Hanukkah, which is a Hebrew word and it means dedication. The first thing they did is they went into the holy place where you have 7-branch candelabrum called a menorah. They tried to find some olive oil from the olive trees, but they could only find a little bit, enough for about one day. They put the oil in the 7-branch candelabrum. Something interesting happened. It didn't last. It didn't burn for only one day. It burned for 8 days. And the Jewish people saw this as a sign that this was a new beginning. And of course, in numbers, in numerology, 7 is the number of perfection, of completion. 6 days work, 7th day rest, and the 8th day is a new beginning, a beginning of a new week. So they saw this as a heavenly sign. And friends, today in 2025, we still commemorate that story. And do you know how we commemorate it? We get not a 7-branch candelabrum, but we get a 9-branch candelabrum. And that's called a Hanukkah. And actually, right behind me is a 9-branch candelabrum. The 4 on each side stands for the 8 days that the oil burned. The one in the middle is called a shamesh. The word shamesh means servant. You light that one candle, and then each night for 8 nights we light 8 candles, and we celebrate the miracle. And it reminds us the need for anything that's been defiled, the temple, ourselves. As the Bible says, our bodies are the temple of the Holy Spirit. And the oil that's needed to keep that light burning. And this time of the year, we're reminded, the light of the world, Yeshua, John chapter 8, verse 12, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will not walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. He came to shine and light, and he's the servant. He's the candle in the middle that gives us light. He gives us spirit to carry on functioning as a light in this world. And we need that light more than ever because there is so much darkness. And that's the message this time of year for Hanukkah, as we celebrate the light that came into the world. We celebrate how the light shines and the darkness cannot comprehend it. The light will overcome the darkness. Keep looking for the light. Keep looking for Yeshua, our salvation. Shalom and happy Hanukkah. Hey, shalom everyone. Aaron Lavaco here. Speaking on behalf of Worldview Television and Radio. I'm up here in the Galilee region speaking at a site dedicated by the Catholic Church in the 19th century, and they call it the Mount of Beatitudes. There's a church behind me, a church that was erected by a man called Antonio Barluzzi. Interestingly, it was financed by the Italian leader Mussolini. And Antonio Barluzzi had special features on his churches, and the special feature in this church is it has 8 windows commemorating the 8 Beatitudes that the Lord gave in the Sermon on the Mount. The Sermon on the Mount site was chosen because not only does it say in Matthew 5, he went up on a hill. So this is a hill here in the Galilee. But it also has a bank that goes down, which would be ideal for a good number of people. Furthermore, it would have a fantastic acoustic sound to the area. So we don't know for sure if it happened up here or not, but certainly when you look at the text in Matthew 5, he went up on a mountain with the bank for a good amount of people and the acoustics. Everything seems to fit the place here. But I want you to think of that phrase, seeing a multitude, he went up on a mountain. Who does that remind you of? If you were a Jewish person in the Second Temple period, of course there was no New Testament, it hadn't been written yet. But from an Old Testament understanding, seeing a man walk up on a mountain, that would have probably reminded you of Moses, the one who went up on the mountain. Also, remember, in the same way that Moses was hidden from Pharaoh killing all the little baby Hebrew boys, Jesus was also divinely spared from Herod killing all the baby boys. So there are a lot of comparisons with Moses and Yeshua, Jesus. In fact, Moses himself said in Deuteronomy chapter 18, verse 18, the Lord will raise up unto you one like me. Listen to him. Moses is considered in Judaism probably the greatest, along with the patriarchs Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Joseph, but really Moses, because Moses was the lawgiver. Moses was the one who brought Israel out of bondage, out of suffering. And places like where I am here, the Mount of Beatitudes, here in the Galilee, up on the hill, and churches and monasteries here, this particular site here, dedicated in the year 2000 by the late Pope John Paul II, who came and visited here with Israel's Prime Minister, Ehud Barak, and our late Foreign Minister and Prime Minister and President, Shimon Peres. Catholics, Christians, Jewish people, even Muslim people come here to the Holy Land, and they come to sites like this. Let's not forget, not only was Moses important for the Jewish people, but even for Muslims, he is one of their prophets. They call him Musa. And of course in Hebrew it's Moshe. But what I like how the prophets and how the prophecies speak that one day there will be one like Moses, and he will come, and that's what we believe happened here on the Mount of Beatitudes. Seeing a multitude, he went up on a mountain, the one like Moses. Now, in the New Testament, we see something a lot. It's called types and shadows. Types and shadows. For example, Jesus used this form of rabbinical teaching by saying, as Moses lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, even so must the Son of Man be lifted up. So he used that story as a type and as a shadow. When the Israelites complained and sinned, the Lord sent snakes and many people died. And so the Lord said to Moses, put a serpent up on a pole, and if anyone looks at that pole, they will be healed. And so Jesus, Yeshua, said, in the same way that happened, even so must the Son of Man be lifted up. Another type and shadow is Paul, when he said, the Messiah, Christ, is our Passover lamb. And he was referencing to the story of the Passover and how the Israelites were, all they were commanded to do was to take a lamb, slay the lamb, put the blood on the doorposts, and when the angel of death saw that blood, the angel of death will pass over that blood. And in the same way, John the Baptist said, behold, the Lamb of God who takes away the sins of the world. So the Mount of Beatitudes, for me, it talks about types, it talks about shadows. And when we read, seeing a multitude, he went up on a mountain. And even after that, he starts to proclaim the blessings. Blessed are the poor in spirit. Blessed are the pure in heart. Who does that remind us of in types and shadows? It reminds us of Joshua, which, by the way, in Hebrew, Yehoshua is exactly the same as Yeshua. It means salvation. And when Joshua came into the promised land, he was commanded to go up into Samaria and proclaim on one mountain, Mount Gerizim, all the curses, and on the other mountain, Mount Arbel, all the blessings. And so we see the one like Joshua come up here to the Mount of Beatitudes and proclaim, blessed are the poor in spirit, blessed are the meek, blessed are they who hunger and thirst after righteousness, blessed are they who are persecuted for my name's sake. And all of these remind us that the Messiah Yeshua came to fulfill. No wonder this is called the Mount of Blessing, the Mount of Beatitudes.
All right, great tours of Israel by our reporter and tour guide, Aaron Lavarco, brought to you by our foundation as we send him regular love offerings. And if you keep supporting us at worldviewfoundation.com, we can keep him reporting and giving us these great tours. Worldviewfoundation.com. Roll the music. Let's call it a night. And thank you for remembering us in your end of the year giving at worldviewfoundation.com. Worldviewfoundation.com. Hey, don't forget, this makes a great gift. The Vault. Give it as a gift. You can sign up for the yearly, the 6 month, or the monthly. But if you do buy it for someone as a gift, be sure to check that box. Is this a gift? And give this gift to them, a great Christmas gift. All kinds of programs, radio shows, TV shows, ebooks, audiobooks, documentaries, and more. With a lot of my books in there now and more to come. May God save America. Take care.
Faith, spiritual values, moral issues, government, economy, education, work, responsibility. What we think about these depends on our worldview. Now, VCY America presents Worldview Radio with Brannon House.
Glad you're with us. We're going to be joined by Olivier Melnick here in a minute. His grandfather was taken from the family home in France, where he was in the basement hiding. He was taken off to a death camp where he died. Olivier's grandfather. He has written a brand new article that just came out yesterday. We are far beyond a repeat of the 1930s and 40s. He opens it up by saying the 1930s and 40s were not a good time to be Jewish in Europe. Hitler was afraid of the Jews. He feared that Judeo-Christian ethics would change the world that he wanted to control with an iron fist. He had to get rid of all Jews at any cost, and he almost succeeded. His program, known as the Final Solution to the Jewish Question, was a euphemism for the eradication of all of European Jews, just like From the River to the Sea is a euphemism for the destruction of all Jews of the 21st century, cloaked in a social justice statement. 2025 is not a good time to be Jewish anywhere in the world, except possibly in Israel. I don't know how many of you have seen the video footage by now, the video footage of a Jewish man being attacked at knife point. Reports are stabbed in the chest a few times yesterday on the street in New York by a man shouting anti-Semitic slurs, we're told, according to reports. The video's pretty clear. And now they are supposedly looking for the individual. You know, I don't think they really want to find these people, to be honest with you. I know that we have ICE is all over Memphis, and I have no problem with ICE being here, getting illegals out of the Memphis area. But I know for a fact ICE is here, and they have supposedly have hired bounty hunters And I know for a matter of fact, they have been able to find some of these folks working on random job sites by pinging their phones. They can ping their phones and find them on random job sites. Isn't it interesting when there's a bounty and money to be made, they can find who they want to find? You're telling me they don't know how to go back with cell towers and know exactly what phones were in that area right there and ping them? Same goes with this whole thing at Brown University. Something is very odd about that whole situation, right? And we are getting reports today, by the way, that may have been a Jewish professor who was killed about an hour away from Brown. We have Yeshiva World News says Jewish pro-Israel MIT professor shot and killed. Police investigating. Pro-Israel. Jewish pro-Israel. So they must think he is. And then I went over there to another website, and that is Israel News. Let's see if I can find that one real quick. This one is Israel National News. I don't know if I can find it. I showed it a while ago to the guys. Now I need to find it again. But they're claiming he's Jewish. The reason I bring that up is because there's been a lot of controversy around and swirling around. Is he Jewish? Is he not Jewish? But several Jewish outlets are saying he was. Not that it matters as far as murder's murder, but I was trying to figure out, was it a Jewish attack? I did read today it is being, there it is, Israel National News. Israel National News. Jewish MIT professor fatally shot at Massachusetts home. He is married, according to reports, and has children. One report says the lady that lives up above him was lighting her menorah candle at about 8:30 local time when she heard the gunshots, opened the door, saw him laying on his back where he had been shot. I don't know, is Iran involved in this? An MIT professor involved in nuclear programs and nuclear energy programs? I don't know. Then yesterday, we saw 2 attacks of Jews in 24 hours. Maybe you saw the video of the other attack. It involved a group of Jews from Canada returning from a Hanukkah event in Manhattan. A father and son attacked the young men on the subway, beat them, and cursed them for being Jewish. And it's not just Jewish. We've warned Christians, it's us too. We warned. Olivier is warned. They're coming for the Saturday people, then the Sunday people. And I don't know if you've seen the video. We can't play it here because there's